Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a very special industry webinar series by SGTech, the GovTech of Singapore, and Smart Nation, the Digital Government Office under the Prime Minister Office. Welcome to today's session, Re-engineering the Government OS, an industry webinar. Today, in the first of the first three-part series, we want to talk about taking a citizen-centric approach to tech development. Now, today also we want to thank our partners, Singapore Business Federation and Singapore Management University for co-promoting this event with us. So let's get started. Now, before we get started with today's session, we always want to remind our friends today about our safe harbor statement. The information provided in today's webinar is really meant for the intention of discussion and learning purposes only. Please always seek your own independent legal and accounting advice before making any decision. My name is Ivan. I'm a cooperative counselor with SGTech. It's always my pleasure to be your MC and your host and a moderator for today's session. So what is SGTech? For our friends who first time join us in the SGTech event, SGTech is the premier trade association for the tech industry in Singapore. We represent more than 950 technology companies, all the way from the MNC to the SME and of course the startup itself. We believe that together as an industry, we can help make a difference in the digitalization and the technology journey for the country itself. So what is Re-engineering the Government OS webinar series? Now, SGTech is so pleased to be working with the Smart Nation Government Office under the Prime Minister Office to provide you a three-part series about ideas and topics that we are having as part of this discussion in the Smart Nation. Today, you're in part 1 about co-designing solution. Part 2 will be next week, strengthening capabilities with the cloud. Part 3, developing an AI and data science capability. And this will culminate in a final session on 8 July with a panel discussion led by Dr. Janelle Puchali, Senior Minister of State. If you are interested in any of this session upcoming, please go to sgtech.org.sg to sign up for the session below. All right. So today I am so lucky to have 3 amazing guests to be joining me on this webinar series. First up, we have Terry Lim, Senior Assistant Director under the Smart Nation Office, Simon Ang, from Assistant Director of GovTech, and our own SGTech First Vice Chairman of the Smart Nation Chapter, Gordon, who's also the General Manager of DXC Technology. They will be talking about different topics of interest about redesigning the government OS for the industry. So without further ado, I'll pass my time. But before that, I'll always get asked this question in the chat group. So let me just address this straight away. The slides will be available on sgtech.org.sg about a day after the live session where possible. If you're allowed to share the slides, they'll be available for you to download a day after. A recording of this webinar is also being prepared and recorded and will be available 1 day later as well. Due to some PDPA issues, we might not be able to send out an email to every one of you. If you want access to it, go to sgtech.org.sg from tomorrow onwards to access it. And Q&A. So if you have any Q&A, because it's going to be a live moderated session, click on the Q&A function on Zoom itself and ask us, and I'll pick out some questions for discussion later. All right, so without further ado, I would now like to pass my time over to Terry Lim himself to talk about some of the new programs that the Smart Nation Office is preparing in this area. Terry, over to you.
Thanks, Ivan. Thank you so much. Let me just bring up my slides.
No worries.
Okay.
Right, perfect. We can see your slides and just you.
Okay, let me just.
No worries. Perfect.
Okay,
thank
great.
You.
So first of all, hi everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. And before I start my sharing, I'd like to thank SGTech for partnering with us on this webinar series. Now, SGTech has been really a valuable and key partner for us, especially over this past 1 year. And we have, it's really been a great pleasure to work with them on several engagement projects, both in Singapore as well as overseas. And so when we were planning for this webinar series, we felt that it would be good for me to come and give an introduction as to why we are organizing this series and to highlight some of the topics that will be covered in the coming weeks. So before I go into that, I need to give a news flash, and which actually forms the basis behind this webinar series. So in case you missed it, all right. So last week, GovTech announced that they are projecting a 30% increase in ICT spend for this financial year. And the reason is to accelerate the government's digitalization efforts and to support businesses recovering from COVID-19. And the total spend on ICT procurement is estimated to be $3.5 billion in this financial year. And the good news is that SMEs can expect to participate in 80% of this potential business opportunities. And so there are 5 areas, 5 key focus areas that GovTech is looking at over the next 1 year. And these 5 areas are development of new tech tools to respond to COVID-19, development of citizen and business-centric digital services, development of ICT systems on cloud, modernization of government ICT infrastructure, last but not least, the increase in the usage of data analytics, AI, and sensors within the public sector. So more information on this announcement can be found on the GovTech website. I understand that many of you would be interested to know, so how is GovTech developing these 5 areas? What are some collaboration opportunities available to private sector? So that is why we have partnered SGTech to bring you this series of webinars that will take place over the next 4 weeks, and which we will attempt to answer some of your questions at these sessions. So we start the series today with the first session on taking a citizen-centric approach to tech development. Next week, on 26th of June, we'll be looking at how the government is strengthening its capabilities on cloud. On 1st July, we have speakers talking about how the government is developing its AI, data science, and sensors capabilities. And last but not least, there will be a session on this In Conversation series, where we will be featuring our special guest, Senior Minister of State, Dr. Janil Puthucheary. Now, he will be talking about how the government is re-engineering itself, reinventing itself, and driving collaboration with industry to build a smart nation. Now, registration for these sessions are already available on the SGTech website. And so this is really just an introduction to kind of frame the objectives and what we are doing with these next few sessions, all right? And so I encourage you to ask questions, and we'll try our best to answer them. So that's all for me, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speaker for this whole series, and that is my colleague from GovTech, Simon. So Simon heads is in charge of the Moments of Life project that really looks at how we can develop citizen-centric services, citizen-centric digital government services for citizens. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, SGTech, for the invitation to be able to share some of the work that GovTech is doing. Just let me bring up my screen first. Right.
Perfect. Can see. Thanks, Simon.
Right, thank you. So I lead the Moments of Life team in GovTech, and from where I am, we are all about building simpler services and making lives better for citizens. We are constantly trying to identify where are the areas of frictions across whole of government, and then digging deeper into these areas to find out how we can make things better. So some of you, I hope most of you actually, would have heard of the Moments of Life application that we launched about 2 years ago. It really started off as a small experiment. We wanted to see if we could somehow help to address some of the challenges that couples face when having a newborn or a toddler in areas that involve the government. It started off with just combining the birth registration and baby bonus application into one single form. Users no longer have to go to different websites to fill up and apply for it, and they don't have to fill up their information all over again. It can be done in just one submission. Users can finish the application in just less than 15 minutes. I personally benefited from this product. So my wife and I had a baby girl this March this year, and I remember doing the registration through the app in the ward without having to pass my personal information to the hospital staff. You know, it was COVID period, so we wanted to minimize interaction with people. So being able to do things digitally through my phone is something that I really welcome. And I finished it in like just less than 10 minutes. So I have to add as well that the hospital kind of charges like $40 for birth registration, but through the app I paid something like $18. So That's a bit of savings over there. Besides birth registration and baby bonus application, we also started to look at related services like checking of immunization records as well as medical appointments for the kids. Because through interviews with parents, we realized that this is something that is actually quite important for them. We have also expanded our thoughts into the preschool area, knowing that for some parents, they may have to send their baby to infant care as early as 4 months old. And so we included like a geolocation search function for preschools, allow parents to be able to search for preschools nearby where they stay or where they're working at. And so it's been 2 years since we launched the product. And today I'm very happy to say that we have about 6 in 10 couples who uses the app to register for childbirth and also the baby bonus. Sometime last year, we kind of started to look at what we can do for the seniors, and it was very timely because Singapore celebrated the Merdeka generation last year with the Merdeka generation package. So we worked really closely with the Agency for Integrated Care and the Civil Generation Office to see how we can bundle some of the services for this group of people. And through our conversations and interviews with the seniors, we realized that community engagement and healthy living kind of topped the list for them. So the geolocation function that we built for preschools, we reused it to use it for activity search for the seniors. So seniors can now search for the nearest Tai Chi class wherever they are, and they no longer have to go down to community centers to look out for classes and schedules. We started to partner People's Association, Health Promotion Board, and IMDA to help seniors with digital adoption and show them the benefits of the app. But when it comes to digital adoption, there are some other barriers that the seniors do face, and language barrier is definitely one of them. So for the senior space within the app, we translated the content and services into 4 main languages. This is the difficult piece because while there are third-party translation tools out there, we haven't seen one that is 100% accurate. And most of the time we need that accuracy because we are translating policies, schemes, content that is very contextualized to Singaporeans. So currently we are still relying very heavily on human translation and vetting at the moment. We are definitely on the lookout for tools that can help to simplify some of the work that we are doing. We have also worked on another affiliated product called the My Legacy Portal. We launched it as a beta version beginning this year. This portal focuses on information and support that citizens require to help them manage legacy planning, palliative care, and also post-death matters. The common theme that runs across the 3 product offerings that I've just shared is that most of the services cut across several agencies. And what we did at MOL level was to string them up in a logical and user-centric fashion so that citizens don't have to go from one agency to another just to get some of these things settled. And we do this using the service journey approach. So in the public service sector, or rather in GovTech, service journey, we have kind of distilled and codified it into a 5-step process. So very briefly, the first step includes talking to users. We can't be designing services from our office desk anymore. We need to talk to the actual users of the service because that's whom we are ultimately designing for. Step 2, try it out yourself. Unless you go through the journey, you will not be able to truly put yourself in others' shoes. And while you are at the journey, you consolidate and identify the pain points. We want to tackle the challenges not just at the front stage interaction space, but also at the backstage interaction mechanics. Sometimes internally between government agencies, the handoffs are not so great or as ideal. And that translates to friction at the front stage interaction for citizens. So we want to be able to address that. And we also want to seek out opportunities where we can redesign some of the processes that is not so satisfactory to the citizens. We may not be able to get it sorted out all at once, but we are agile and we are always continuously learning. So we learn somewhere and we iterate from there. It's like a continuous improvement thing that we are working on. And technology should be an enabler to make service delivery faster, more efficient, convenient, secure, but more importantly, to ensure consistency, where experience gets codified as much as possible. There are less dependencies on individual officers that are serving the citizen. we want to be able to continue to use this service journey methodology to continue to bundle services for different service citizens groups. So beyond families and seniors, some of the potential groups that we are looking at right now include working it out, specifically on employment facilitation, Singaporeans traveling overseas, volunteers, and more, especially during this COVID period where there's a lot of shifts in terms of how we're doing things today. Travel may not be the same anymore. There is a huge wave of volunteerism that we're seeing in local Singapore. And yeah, so these are some of the things that we are looking at immediately right now. And we also welcome suggestions as to which other groups you think we need to be focusing on right now. I'll be happy to take in the feedback. So besides shifting the focus to citizen centricity in terms of product design, we are also looking at reusability and scalability in terms of our product stack. I want to circle back to the earlier point on reusing the preschool geolocation search module for the seniors activities search. That really gave us a lot of time and cost savings simply just by reusing the module and customizing it for other usage. In order for us to scale fast, we have to focus on building modules that can be reused across the various scenarios, just like Lego bricks. Having said that, there are some modules which GovTech can build, but there are some which we just want to plug in ready modules that are already available out there in the market. As we look across the various government services, we observe some similar attributes across really all agencies. Most of the e-services, we can't run away from appointment booking, payments, content publishing, translation, notifications, and forms application. So having these, what we call common modules, it allows us to quickly put together an e-service and make it available through the Moments of Life platform. Now, I understand most of you who are tuning in today to this webinar are business owners. You may be asking, GovTech is doing so much for citizens, so how about business owners in Singapore? I'd like to advertise a little bit of this platform that my colleagues in GovTech are working on and using the same service journey methodology. It's called the Go Business Licensing Platform. It was launched last year, October. It started with streamlining license application for F&B business owners. F&B business owner used to have to go to as many as 14 agencies just to secure the required permits and licenses before they can open a shop front. Now with this portal, they can just come to this portal and they can just fill in a form, and automatically those licenses that they are required will be applied for in a sequential manner or however it takes. And we have also cut down the number of fields that businesses used to fill in. They used to fill in tons and tons of forms, but with this streamlining process, we actually cut down quite a number of that. I can't stress enough on the usage of service journeys methodology when it comes to influencing our product decisions. So that's something that's really important to GovTech at this moment as we talk about citizen centricity. So that's a quick run through of some of the products that we are working on right now. We welcome any suggestions or ideas. Yep, so that's kind of the end of my sharing, and I will hand over to Gordon, who will be taking us through the next part.
Thank you, Simon, and welcome everybody. Let me bring up my slides. Just everyone can see these.
Perfect.
Thank you, Simon. That was very informative, very interesting to see the work behind the scenes that GovTech is undertaking to deliver some of the applications that the citizens get to enjoy. I thought, as part of SGTech, we're members of the Smart Nation group, and when I think about a smart nation, we often as technologists think about deploying the latest technology and robotics and automation. But at the end of the day, smart is really allowing businesses and citizens to be able to interact with the government in an efficient and effective way, as you have described, Simon. And as part of our chapter, we've been focused to understand how that can be done. And when I look at sort of common cited characteristics, there are many of the points that you, Simon, raised in your presentation. It's about being able to anticipate what a business or a citizen needs. It's being able to give an intuitive service that the citizen is able to self-serve and deliver. It's personalized, recognizing the information that is already obtained on the citizen, and it's seamless, allowing you to move from one activity or process to the next in a logical and seamless manner to fulfill the functions that you want. And I think the definition that I found online and was used by several organizations is one that really, where the citizen doesn't have to worry about the operational structure or the process requirements of the government that they're interacting with. This has been a trend that we can see that goes back a couple of decades, and I think just for the audience at large, and also to support the conversation and the debate and the questions that we'll have here shortly, I thought it'd be important just to give some references to some of the materials that have oriented governments as a whole to embracing a citizen-centric approach. Not only citizen engagement, which is a broader conversation into also the political agenda, but citizen-centric delivery, which is really what we're speaking of this afternoon. A number of organizations have issued papers which I think anybody can easily find online, and in addition to think tanks and business schools and the management consulting kind of organizations. But I would suggest that there is some very good material out there as to how governments are orienting in this direction. And I think it's also very encouraging that Singapore is often cited as performing very well. So I would congratulate the GovTech team on the work that's been performed and the recognition that's being given globally to the work that's been done in Singapore. For those of us that think about adopting, whether we wish to consider building such services or servicing our own customers, or whether we want to, as SGTech members, possibly be wanting to be suppliers to the government, I think there's a few things that we see that are important. I think when you consider changing the way in which a service is delivered to being citizen-centric, there are underlying factors as to the level of trust that exists with the services as it's delivered today, and how the channels of engagement are, and what's the sentimentality of the citizen. I think there's a lens by which you look through, and I think Simon articulated those very well, as to how to engage the citizen, be able to empower them with the technology to perform the services themselves, be empathetic to their knowledge and their situation, where they may be to perform that, where they may be in their stage of life. And of course, ethnic considerations as well. But I think from a supplier perspective and from an implementation perspective, some of the key things is having the capability to map out service journeys, be able to obtain behavioral insights, be able to do process mining, look at the legacy applications, look at the existing processes, be able to articulate those and be able to determine how to make them more efficient. And then, how to ultimately get it, like you said, Simon, adapt quickly, change. It seems GovTech's adopted an agile approach to this to allow iterations and faster change, faster adaptation, which is certainly what the citizens expect. And then there's also the opportunity to co-create. So I thought I'd share these points from the chapter's perspective as SGTech, and when we consider things like moments of life and citizen engagement, to allow us to then have a broader debate with the audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gordon. So today we heard from Terry earlier to give us a context of the situation that the Government of Singapore and GovTech and Smart Nation Office is coming. Of course, you heard from Simon about the moments of life application itself. And of course, Gordon to really kind of wrap all of this up together. So guys, if you have questions, we have the next about 20 minutes to get them answered. So our audience member, if you have questions, please do put them on the Q&A functionality and have us, and I will try our best to look at it as best I can. But maybe let's just get started with something. For us, I obviously I am not in the public service, so Simon and Terry, what's the hierarchy of GovTech and the Smart Nation Digital Office? I think every Singaporean, generally speaking, are not too aware of where each of the offices are placed and what's the difference between GovTech and the SNDGO, which is commonly referred to as STUDOC. Yes. Maybe Terry.
Okay, I'll try to answer that question. And it is true that a lot of people are a bit confused and not sure. So the way we are structured is that the Smart Nation and Digital Government Office is a policy office, and it is where we consider and we look at some of the policies that is required in order to drive us to become a smart nation. And then where Simon is situated, they are known as the Government Technology Agency of Singapore. And that's where all our tech gurus, all our engineers, all our brilliant minds are located. And that's after the policy has been cleared and we have a policy direction, then our colleagues at GovTech will then develop the technology, work with industry to develop the various product pieces. And so that's really how we work together between the Smart Nation and Digital Government Office and GovTech.
Got it. So one side for policy and one side for the actual heavy duty job of lifting the codes in and making sure it works. I think that clarifies for a lot of our audience member and even for myself how the two officers are interfacing with each other. So let's start started. First thing first to Simon. Hey, what is the I think it's such a pity that, a lot of us, even myself, right, when I first talked to you 2 weeks ago, I downloaded the Moment of Life app for the first time. So a lot of us in the audience have said that, hey, it's actually a great application and it's just about marketing that a lot of people do not know. So where do you see, you as a product manager, the roadmap for Moments of Life upcoming in the next 2 to 3 years, if you can share in terms of that? It looks like a great app. If you can share, I think a lot of the audience members would like to know that.
Yeah, so I kind of shared a little bit in my slides earlier that besides the families and seniors type of moments, we are also looking at some other citizen population groups like employment, as well as volunteerism and also traveling overseas. But a lot of these citizen population group, we are identifying those acute moments that they may face. As simple as maybe losing a passport overseas. There's a huge journey around it. And also maybe even for when you want to switch jobs, for example, or there's a lot of turning points, and we call that moments. It may not be as significant as, say, like getting married or having a child. That sort of moments they're looking at. We're also looking at micro moments within the citizens' life phases. So the roadmap for Moments of Life is really to identify all of this, whether micro or big moments, and start to design services around it, stringing them in a logical fashion. But more importantly, as we string up all of these services, we do realize that they are not all at once applicable to every single individual, because someone could be a dad, but someone could just be a single person who's just started working. We recognize the different persona and profile. So there's something that we wanted to bring in as well, which is a little bit of personalization and customization. As we start to redesign services around these moments, we just want to present the more relevant ones to you, so that as you journey on, we start to review a little bit more and more that's relevant, that are relevant to you. You won't be faced with these tons and tons of services, and then you find yourself lost among all the services that government is providing. So the roadmap is really include more moments and then string them out in a logical fashion, and then present it in a manner that is relevant to life stages of each individual.
So potentially a super app, but in a government service world, right? Like if I were to, I can say it since I'm not from the government, but how I'm hearing it is like I finally get a super app whereby I download one and it's going to get me access to everything.
Yeah, that's the vision. Yeah, that's the vision.
Okay.
We really hope that this app can journey with you through your life, from your young age all the way to seniors. But what would change is really the content that's being served through this platform.
So this is where I think it's a great thing. So in our audience member today, I see some of our familiar friends like Shin Ho, who is our existing SGTech member and our counselor as well. So for Gordon, and Simon discussion, like I would like to hear like two areas. We have our friends here who are from the ICT industry, like myself. I'm a tech professional, and we would like to know how the smaller boys can be part of GovTech. That's one. And if I'm not, meaning I am just here as a F&B vendor, for example, how can we effectively give feedback to this? Because it seems that government is taking a very collaborative, citizen approach to this. How can we do it? So first thing first, from a SME perspective, how can we be part of the building process? And from a human-centric perspective, how can average Singaporean or ordinary Singaporean be part of the process? Gordon?
Well, I would say that small companies certainly still have value to bring, right? So that I work for a large company, but we still will partner with smaller companies to fulfill an overall project. So when I think about some of the objectives that the government would have to bring this type of a service to other areas, there could be either specialty programs. I think Simon already mentioned about wanting new capabilities in the area of language translation, or analytics potentially that's behind these engines to allow that to happen, or to create the service journey itself is increasingly actually a boutique company function. Many of the companies that have actually been working in service delivery, re-engineering that I'm aware of have actually been the smaller companies that have been working with service redesign in a physical world before now translating that over to the digital world.
So for sure, a part to play in that if they were to step out. And maybe Simon, since you are building such projects, right? Can ordinary Singaporeans with a random idea have a suggestion box for the government of Singapore for GovTech? Do we have a gigantic suggestion box? Hey, let's build this. I want a cool little super app here.
Yeah, so actually we have a feedback form within the Moments of Life app itself. You could always drop suggestions, and we get tons of that, sometimes through the Play Store and iOS App Store as well. But sometimes people just write in randomly to us. We also welcome that. So yeah, we are always on the lookout for suggestions from public, and we are always looking for people to kind of co-create and test out some of the features with us. Very often what we are lacking is lacking people to test out the features that we are building. Yeah.
Maybe give a NTUC discount when we help test out.
We do actually sometimes, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to sign up later already, for sure. Since I already give feedback for free. Thanks, Simon. Now to Terry, right? Since you want to go back a bit more to the policy side, I was there when Minister Vivian Balakrishnan at during Tech Fest, InnoFest, NUS InnoFest 3 years ago, talk about IoT. Like there was a very big concrete push on the Internet of Things. And a lot of us in the ICT industry, including SGTech, we started in IoT. We really had a whole range of companies came out in the IoT. Maybe from a policy perspective, is that something that because we are hearing the news obviously now with the trace anywhere tracker beacon and stuff coming up. What will be something to look out for our friends in the IoT space and in the analytics space that they can potentially work with the government of Singapore for in the next few years? Or is a hype over? Yeah.
Thanks for that question. And
so it's a very loaded question, yes.
Actually, I think I don't want to try and take the limelight away from my colleagues who will be speaking in a couple of weeks' time on the session on AI, data science, and sensors. That will be an interesting session where those are really hot topics that we're looking at, and really a lot of people are calling them frontier technologies. And so I do encourage people to tune in for that. But if I can just share a little bit, you're right. With COVID-19, we have had to look at IoT in a very big way. And things like Trace Together, even some of the other things like, I don't know if you have seen the video on Spot, the robotic dog that we have been deploying at a few of our parks. Those are very good, very useful technology that we're looking at. And especially in a time such as this, where we have to be mindful of social distancing and even how we are deploying volunteers on the ground, many of this technology are really useful. And in fact, as we look into the recovery phase of COVID, we will even rely a lot more on all this so that to prevent a second wave from coming on stream. Yeah.
Got it. So definitely something I think, finally the wave is happening and cresting. Maybe Gordon, from a technology perspective, any comments on IoT and AI since DXT and Smart Nation, this is going to be the way we get all this data to feed the analytics of it.
Sure. I mean, I think without a doubt, we will see a proliferation of sensors and devices. I think the challenge is deploying them in such a way that they don't become siloed. Same as really applications and data today, right? We're learning from the history of having built some of these things in a siloed fashion, and then we end up with pools of insight rather than a full holistic view. So one of the challenges I would sense is putting these sensors and readers and monitors and cameras out in such a way that they are able to be interconnected in the data exchange to really deliver the intelligence and insights that is ultimately wanted.
Got it. A lot of our, sorry, I think there's a feedback here. A lot of, once again, a few reminders to our audience. There's so much happening in the chat. The four of us are not able to read the chat because already to read the question and answer is very stressful for the rest of that. So if you have a question, please do it on the Q&A so that I can filter it. Thank you so much. Now, let's talk about the tech sector. I think it's very obvious, and I'm looking through our list of attendees. I see so many of our regular SGTech member companies, our ICT companies in the SME space. So, maybe for the three of you, since, GovTech, SNGOD, and of course, Gordon, right? What is something that the local ICT industry, if you are a smaller player and you're not the big boy, should focus on based on your position there? Like, should we, what, I mean, like, there's always an industry tension between the government and the ICT player about building something together, right? What should we focus, what should a smaller SME focus on so that we can build, and this is for the good of Singapore, a long-term competitive advantage that the Singapore brand name in the ICT space represents something amazing as well. Any thoughts on this area? Yeah, the fear is there already. Gordon, yes.
Well, I guess, first of all, whether you're trying to sell to the government or collaborate with the government to create something, you've got to have a distinguishing value, right? So I guess ultimately it is, how are you going to distinguish your product or service from the competitors? But my sense, and I work almost exclusively with the government, is the government is going to try and find the most effective solution at the best price, but is open to looking and exploring what's possible. So I think some of the things that if you're a smaller company, you have to obviously be concerned about is what's the level of investment that you may be needing to make? How will you protect the intellectual property? But I think Singapore is a good playground to build something, to experiment. And I think many countries, especially in Southeast Asia, are looking at exactly what Singapore is doing.
Okay.
And the opportunity is probably there downstream to be able to export that capability that you've proven with the Singapore government.
Got it. So this is for sure something to play about. Simon, any thoughts about, I think you and I are both graduates from comp science, right? So, and we are industry professional here in this space. Where should, if I'm from the business world, where should our engineers and our software engineers be working hard and building a skill set in this market space?
Yeah, I feel a lot of the small businesses, I think the focus should be really what's the value we bring to citizens, or if we were to implement this product on our platform or plugged into our platform, for example, what's the ultimate value that we bring to citizens? We do have people coming to us sometimes to ask us to help to publicize their product through MOL. We also go through a series of evaluation, like what's the value we bring to citizens? Is it something that is quite bloated out there already, and it's just another offering? Or is there really something that helps citizens solve some acute moments in their life? So these are some of the things I couldn't say for now there's a fixed set of criteria, but really it goes through a series of evaluation to see whether this product is worth putting onto the platform or not that we already own. And some of it really it's all about the value proposition, the business proposition of it. It's not that we don't want or what, it's really, you know, what value does it ultimately bring to citizens? We don't want to put things on just for the sake of putting it on. Yeah.
I guess it's a very design-centric approach, right? Like whereby you know, we always continuously evaluate what is best for the citizen or as in a Singaporean and how it makes sense for us to do it. So I think that gives us a lot of clarity for our friends in the ICT industry. Okay, now once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you have other questions, please always continue to post on the Q&A so that we can look at some of them. I think there's a very active chat discussion going on now, which I'm not able to respond to. So do post on the Q&A. Now, Gordon, let's talk about technology companies, SME, right? You know, do you think that there will be an existing technology services that the Singapore SME can tap on for the government? So instead of us just always thinking about the SME providing services to the government, is there, you know, based on your experience, is there services from the government side that SME can tap on to increase their own business reach? For example, integration with the one login password and all this other stuff. Any thoughts on the area?
Well, yes, I think, I mean, you've probably cited the most obvious one, to look at things like the SingPass. So as those kind of capabilities are made available by the government, I think SMEs can certainly take advantage and lower their costs by being able to onboard some of the capabilities that the government's made available. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the IMDA website also provides a number of services that businesses can take advantage of, including digital services for payments, for invoicing. So I would encourage you know, small and medium companies to look at what the government actually does have on offer and figure out how to leverage those, possibly embed them into their solutions to reduce the cost of R&D and development and you know, bring that closer. I think another piece of advice, and this is, you know, one of the good reasons of being a member of SGTech, is being a part of the broader ecosystem. So my experience is that it's increasingly rare that a company can do everything in this area of technology. And people like DXE exist, and many others as systems integrators to pull the pieces together. So if you are a smaller company, you know, understanding what your niche is and what that value is, and figuring out who could be partners that you can work with in the market, I think is important. And SGTech provides a great platform to build those relationships and to share your experiences with other companies that you might be able to work with.
Understandable. Now, Terry, any thoughts so far on what we have discussed on this area for the private sector?
Yes. So I saw some questions from our audience asking how can they collaborate, how can they find some of these solutions. So I think there are a number of ways, and I think one of the places which we have our colleagues at IMDA has started is this thing called the Open Innovation Platform. And for those of you who are interested, you can go to their website. It's openinnovation.sg. And so what happens at this OIP is that both the private sector and public agencies are invited to come on board and to actually issue business challenges on this portal. And the OIP invites problem solvers, encouraging industry partners to develop innovative solutions to these problem statements by both the public sector, both government agencies, as well as the private sector. And a lot of funding provided for those solutions that are eventually accepted. And in fact, they go through different phases of acceptance. And so, and that's one platform that I heard has been quite popular and successful. And so I really encouraged private sector partners to go on board to explore that platform.
So OIP platform, the Open Innovation Platform. So ladies and gentlemen,
right.
openinnovation.sg. Do check out. I understand that it runs, SGTech is also involved with that by promoting it. I understand that Open Innovation runs in cycles. So there's always a cycle called, I have seen some of the problem statements that have been posted there. They are really asking for out there innovative solutions. So, for especially the startups in our market, in our sharing session, do always check out when they call, because some of the ideas, some of the solution I see in the startup from our members at SGTech might be very relevant to the OIP course as well. So do take part, and it's a whole of government approach as well. So it's a great session itself. Well, I really want to draw a close to today's session. I think we have answered a lot of questions. Our audience member, do continue posting questions if you have any. In this time, we would like to give some time before we take any more last questions to Simon, Gordon, and Terry individually. And maybe from Simon first, how you think that a closing statement on how you think we as citizens can be a bigger part of the conversation and re-engineering the processes working with GovTech. Simon?
I suppose the question is targeted at how a normal citizen can work with GovTech in building more citizen-centric services. I think there's a lot of feedback channels available for citizens. We welcome feedback, whether good or bad. And each of the feedback that comes into us, sometimes the feedback are very generic and we don't really know how to act on it. It would be really nice if citizens could provide details about how they are feeling frustrated about using certain services or anything that we should be working on. Some of this feedback allow us to be able to follow through and open up more opportunities for discovery and research, and therefore improving the services along the way. So definitely we are open to receiving suggestions all the time. So just reach out to us, and we could be looking at the next generation of products. So yeah, that's all I want to add.
And Gordon, from SGTech perspective, as our first vice chair for the Smart Nation, once again, not here to sell polio to our friends who are not members, but SGTech as a trade association, you can see we have very close relations, working with SNGOG, GovTech, and of course IMDA and the whole of MCI as well. Coming together is always stronger together. We really are able to come together for joint session and joint pitches and get first-hand information. So Gordon, what's a rally call for friends who are in the ICT space and not yet SGTech members, or what value can they get from us? Yeah.
I guess I would echo Simon as well. I think it's incumbent upon anyone that wishes to, come forward with a suggestion to not just, make a complaint about the current process, but rather, turn that into sort of some actionable insights. So what is the challenge with the process? What could be the new model of working? Possibly if you are an IT company, could you create a POC, or at least, lay out what the use case is that you're trying to solve, and then try and bring that to the agency that would be responsible, whether that's GovTech or whether that's another agency that deals directly with citizens. Again, my experience is if you speak to the right folks, government's very willing to listen and is trying to deliver the best service it can. So if you get to the right people that are responsible for that, my experience is there's receptivity. I think turning it back on the industry, obviously if you don't have a full solution, then maybe you can partner up with some other companies that would have elements of the solution and come forward to the government with a proposition of how that could be delivered. At the end of the day, the government will have to go through its own due diligence and tender process, but I think there's certainly vehicles, as we've just described, that allow the debate and the discussion to occur.
Thank you so much, Gordon. And I think for those of you, the Smart Nation chapter within the SGTech community looks after all of this, and I think the vendors and the SMEs in the area come together to work together to bid on joint government projects. And as you say, I think Terry, when he first started off, straight away shared that there's so much new projects upcoming and availability for SME. So last but not least, Terry, any closing thoughts for our friends here? You can see that our member audience really a lot of ICT professional.
I guess I would just pick up on the point that Simon and both Gordon made as well on the importance of being citizen-centric and user-centric. And I come from the department in SNDGO called the Citizen Engagement and Adoption Team. And so over the past few months, we have been really looking at how we can better engage our users, our citizens, because at the end of the day, like what Simon mentioned, we want to create products that people will use. And so actually we have built this, we have this initiative called the Smart Nation Builder. It's not out in public yet, but it's actually a truck that we have developed. It's a huge truck. We wanted to bring it up onto the streets during the last couple of months. Unfortunately, we cannot. But sometime in the second half of this year, you should start seeing it moving around at different estates, community events, as well as in the Central Business District. Now, what the Smart Nation Builder is doing is that we have, through gamification, have different stations within the truck. And one key point that we are trying to do is to understand pain points of our citizens and businesses. And so whether is it in the area of education, area of transportation, in the area of government services, we have a few of these areas, and we want to dive deep and find out what are the pain points at each of our citizens and businesses user journeys. All right. And the idea is that once we have identified some of these pain points, people can then vote to see which pain point is the most they want government to try and solve. But at the same time, we are also open to making some of this information available to the private sector, because if the private sector can understand what are some of the pain points of our citizens, it can become a business opportunity for them too, right? So we are really trying to ramp up our engagement of citizens, really from the perspective of finding out how can technology make their lives better.
For sure, I think technology is transformational, and now this circuit breaker has shown us how drastically different the new normal is. So thank you so much. Before I say thanks to our audience and our speakers as well. Now, everyone, I have posted the SGTech main email hotline, info@sgtech.org.sg. Now, there are more than 50 questions posted, and a lot of them we're not able to take them on due to time constraint. So if you feel that you have some questions for us that you'd like to be directed towards Gordon at the Smart Nation office, at the Smart Nation chapter, Terry at the Smart Nation Government office, and of course Simon at GovTech, or in general feedback about this, drop us an email, info@sgtech.org.sg, and we will get it forwarded to the right representative from this area here as well. We're just going to mask their email so that you don't have Simon waking up tomorrow with 1,000 suggestions to put all the application that all the SME has on the Moments of Life app. I think that is very, very scary. So thank you so much, Simon. Thank you so much, Gordon. Thank you so much, Terry. We thank you for joining us this session. Thank you. So for our other friends, before you tune off today, remember again, together with Smart Nation Singapore office, this is a 3+1 part series. The next part is strengthening capabilities with cloud, followed by developing AI and data science challenge. And the last but not least, we're going to end it off with, of course, a special webinar with Minister of State, Dr. Janelle. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. The video will be available in a short while on the SGTech website a day later. But before you leave, kindly help us fill out this survey. The link is going to be sent when you close this thing. But if you not, please help us take out your phone, scan this QR code. I think everyone is very used to scanning QR code now. They know how to. Help us do this survey so that we can better improve our webinar. Once again, everyone, please stay safe, even in phase 2. Avoid going out if possible, and we are all stronger together as a fellow Singaporean. So, Majula Singapore. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.